Welcome dear students. Today we will be discussing about the structure of proteins. Proteins are high molecular weight chemical compounds that carry out virtually all of a cell's activities. They are the molecular tools and machines that make things happen. As enzymes, proteins immensely accelerate the rate of metabolic reactions. As structural cables, proteins provide mechanical support both within the cell and outside their perimeters. As hormones, growth factors and gene activators, they perform a wide variety of regulatory functions. As membrane receptors and transporters, proteins determine what a cell reacts to and what type of substances constitute the machinery for biological movements. Such a diverse display of functions performed by a single molecule can be explained by the presence of virtually unlimited shapes that proteins as a group can assume. In other words, proteins are capable of such wide variety of activities because they can exhibit such a great variety of structures. Each protein, however, has a unique and highly ordered structure that enables it to carry out a particular function. The fundamental principle of protein chemistry is that one protein differs from another because each of its polypeptide chains consists of amino acids polymerized in a particular sequence. While physicists study three-dimensional structure of macromolecules, the biologists study protein structure up to 4 levels of organization. These levels are primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure and quaternary structure. Now let's analyze the primary structure. The primary structure of a protein is the specific linear sequence of amino acids that constitute the chain. Each protein has a unique sequence of amino acids that gives the molecule its unique properties. Many of the capabilities of a protein are determined by the chemical properties of its constituent amino acids. There are 20 different types of amino acids that are commonly used in the construction of proteins, whether from a plant, virus or an animal. All amino acids have a carboxyl group and an amino group, which are separated from each other by a single carbon atom, the alpha carbon. In a neutral aqueous solution, the alpha carboxyl group loses its proton and exists in a negatively charged state, and the alpha amino group accepts a proton and exists in a positively charged state. Amino acids like sugars have asymmetric centers. With the exception of glycine, the alpha carbon of amino acids binds to 4 different groups so that each amino acid can exist in either a dextro or a levo form. Amino acids usually in the synthesis of a protein on a ribosome are always L amino acids. Microorganisms, however, use D amino acids in the synthesis of certain small peptides, including those of their cell wall and several antibiotics. Amino acids are classified on the nature of their side chains into 4 categories as polar and charged amino acids, polar and uncharged amino acids, non-polar amino acids, and those with unique properties. During the process of protein synthesis, each amino acid becomes joined to 2 other amino acids, forming a long, continuous, unbranched polymer called a polypeptide chain. The amino acids that make up a polypeptide chain are joined by a peptide bond that results from the linkage of the carboxyl group of one amino acid to the amino group of its neighbor, with the elimination of a molecule of water. The average polypeptide chain contains about 450 amino acids. The longest known polypeptide found in the muscle protein titin contains nearly 27,000 amino acid residues. Once incorporated into to a polypeptide chain, amino acids are termed residues. The residues on one end of the chain, that is the N terminus, contains an amino acid with a free alpha amino group, whereas the residues at the opposite end, that is the carboxyl terminus, has a free alpha carboxyl group. The backbone or main chain of the amino acids is common to all of the amino acids. The side chain or R group bound to the alpha carbon is highly variable among the 20 amino acids or building blocks of proteins. And it is this variability that ultimately gives proteins their diverse structures and activities. If the various amino acids side chains are considered together, they exhibit a large variety of structural features ranging from fully charged to hydrophobic, and they can participate in a wide variety of covalent and non-covalent bonds. For example, the side chains of the active sites of enzymes can facilitate many different organic reactions. The varied characteristics of the side chain of the amino acids are important in both intramolecular interactions, which determine the structure and activity of the molecule, and intermolecular interactions, which determine the relationship of a polypeptide with other molecules, including other polypeptides. Now we come to secondary structure of proteins. A polymer's secondary structure is defined as the local conformation of its backbone. For proteins, this has come to mean the specification of regular polypeptide backbone folding patterns like helices, pleated sheets, and turns, etc. If we examine the geometry of the protein backbone, it reveals several important features. First, the peptide bond between the two amino acids is essentially a planar. Thus, for a pair of amino acids linked by a peptide bond, 6 atoms lie in the same plane. The nature of the chemical bonding within a peptide explains these geometric preferences. The peptide bond has considerable double bond character, which prevents rotation about this bond. The inability of this bond to rotate constrains the conformations of the peptide backbone and accounts for the bond's planarity. 2 conformations are possible for a planar peptide bond. In the trans conformation, the 2 alpha carbon atoms are on opposite side of the peptide bond, while as in the cis conformation, these groups are on the same side of the peptide bond. Almost all peptide bonds in proteins are trans. In contrast with peptide bond, the bonds between the amino group and the alpha carbon atom and between the alpha carbon atom and the carboxyl group are single bonds. The 2 adjacent rigid peptide units may rotate about these bonds, taking on various orientations. This freedom of rotation about 2 bonds of each amino acid allows proteins to fold in many different ways. The angle of rotation about the bond between the nitrogen and the alpha carbon atoms is called phi, and the angle of rotation about the bond between the alpha carbon and the carbonyl carbon atom is called psi bond. The phi and psi angles determine the path of the polypeptide chain. Despite being free to rotate, not all combinations of phi and psi are possible. G.N. Ramachandran in 1963 recognized that many combinations are forbidden because of steric collisions between atoms. The allowed values can be visualized on a 2-dimensional plot called a Ramachandran diagram. 3/4 of the possible phi and psi combinations are excluded simply by local steric clashes. Steric exclusion, the fact that 2 atoms cannot be in the same place at the same time, can be a powerful organizing principle. The rigidity of the peptide unit and the restricted set of allowed phi and psi angles limit the number of structures accessible to the unfolded form, sufficiently allow protein folding to occur. The early studies on protein secondary structure were carried out by Lewis Pauling and Robert Corey of the California Institute of Technology in 1951. By studying the structure of simple peptides consisting of a few amino acids linked together, Pauling and Corey concluded that polypeptide chains exist in preferred conformations that provide the maximum possible number of hydrogen bonds between neighboring amino acids. Two conformations were proposed, and these are alpha helix and the second one is beta pleated sheets. Alpha helix. In this conformation, the backbone of the polypeptide assumes the form of a cylindrical twisting spiral. A tightly coiled backbone forms the inner part of the rod, and the side chain extend outward in a helical array. The alpha helix is stabilized by hydrogen bonds between the amino and the carboxyl group of the main chain. In particular, the carboxyl group of each amino acid forms a hydrogen bond with the NH group of the amino acid that is situated 4 residues ahead in the sequence. Thus, except for amino acids near the ends of alpha helix, all the main chain carboxyl and amino groups are hydrogen bonded. Each residue is related to the next one by a rise of 1.5 angstrom along the helix axis and a rotation of 100 degrees, which gives 3.6 residues per turn of helix. The pitch of the alpha helix, which is equal to the product of the translation, that is 1.5 angstrom, and the number of residues per turn, that is 3.6, is 5.4 angstrom. The secrescence of a helix can be right-handed, that is clockwise, or left-handed, that is counterclockwise. The Ramachandran diagram reveals that both the right-handed and the left-handed helices are among the allowed conformations. However, right-handed helices are energetically more favorable because there is less steric clash between the side chains and the backbone. Essentially, all the helices found in proteins are right-handed. The alpha helical content of proteins range widely from nearly none to almost 100%. For example, about 75% of the residues in ferritin, a protein that helps store iron, are in alpha helices. Single alpha helices are usually less than 45 angstrom long. However, 2 or more alpha helices can intertwine to form a very stable structure, which can have a length of up to 1000 angstrom or even more. Such alpha helical coiled coils are found in myosin and tropomyosin in muscle, in fibrin in the blood clots, and in keratin in hair. The helical cables in these proteins serve a mechanical role in forming stiff bundles of fibers as in porcupine quills. Many proteins that span biological membranes also contain alpha helices. Now we come to beta pleated sheets. The other conformation proposed by Pauling and Corey was the beta pleated sheets, which consists of several segments of a polypeptide lying side by side. The beta pleated sheet differs markedly from the rod-like alpha helix. A polypeptide chain called a beta strand in a beta sheet is almost fully extended rather than being tightly coiled as in the alpha helix. The distance between adjacent amino acids along a beta strand is approximately 3.5 angstrom, in contrast with a distance of 1.5 angstrom along a alpha helix. The side chains of adjacent amino acids point in opposite directions. A beta sheet is formed by linking 2 or more beta strands by hydrogen bonds. Adjacent chains in a beta sheet can run in opposite directions. that is anti-parallel beta sheets, or in the same direction, that is parallel beta sheets. In the anti-parallel arrangement, the amino group and the carbonyl group of each amino acid are respectively hydrogen bonded to the carboxyl group and the amino group of a partner on the adjacent chain. In the parallel arrangement, the hydrogen bonding scheme is slightly more complicated. For each amino acid, the amino group is hydrogen bonded to the carbonyl group of one amino acid and the adjacent strand, whereas the carbonyl group is hydrogen bonded to the amino group on the amino acid, two residues further along the chain. Many strands, typically 4 or 5, but as many as 10 or more, can come together in beta sheets. Such beta sheets can be purely anti-parallel or they may be mixed. More structurally diverse than alpha helix, beta sheets can be relatively flat, but most adopt somewhat twisted shape. The beta sheet is an important structural element in many proteins. For example, fatty acid binding proteins important for the lipid metabolism is built almost entirely of beta sheets. Polypeptide chains can change direction by making reverse turns and loops. Most proteins have compact globular shape requiring reversal in the direction of their polypeptide chains. Many of these reversals are accomplished by a common structural element called the reverse turn, also known as the beta turn or hairpin bend. Unlike alpha helices and beta strands, loops don't have regular periodic structures. Nonetheless, loop structures are often rigid and well defined. Turns and loops invariably lie on the surface of the protein and thus often participate in interactions between proteins and other molecules. Now we come to tertiary structure of proteins. The tertiary structure of a protein is its three-dimensional arrangement, that is, the folding of its two-degree structural elements together within the spatial disposition of its side chains. Whereas secondary structure is stabilized primarily by hydrogen bonds, tertiary structure is stabilized by an array of non-covalent bonds between the diverse side chains of the protein. Secondary structure is largely limited to a small number of conformations, but tertiary structure is virtually unlimited. Most proteins can be categorized on the basis of their overall conformations, that is, three-dimensional structures, as being either fibrous proteins which have a highly elongated shape or globular proteins which have a compact shape. Most proteins that act as structural material outside living cells are fibrous proteins, such as collagen and elastin of connective tissue, keratin of hair, skin, fingernails, and silk. These proteins consist of long strands of flattened sheets that resist pulling or shearing forces to which they are exposed. In contrast, most proteins within the cell are globular proteins. Now, protein domains and motifs. Many proteins, particularly the larger ones, are composed of two or more distinct modules or domains that fold independent of one another. The different domains of a polypeptide often represent parts that function in a semi-independent manner. For example, they might bind different factors such as coenzyme and a substrate, or a DNA strand and another protein, or they might move relatively independent of one another. Some polypeptides containing more than one domain are thought to have arisen during evolution by the fusion of genes that coded for different ancestral proteins, with each domain representing a part that was once a separate molecule. At first glance, the three-dimensional architecture of proteins appears almost hopelessly complex as more tertiary structures are determined. However, biochemists have discovered recurring substructures or motifs that consist of a definite arrangement of alpha helix and or beta sheets. Two examples can be cited to describe motifs. These are coiled coils and alpha-beta barrels. In the coiled coil, which is found in the fibrous proteins such as muscle protein, myosin, two or more alpha helices coil around one another like entwined strands of a cable. Alpha helices that interact as coiled coils have a distinctive primary structure characterized by a regular repeating sequence of 7 amino acids. One of the complex motifs is the alpha-beta barrel, which was originally discovered in an enzyme triose phosphate isomerase and has since been found in up to 10% of all enzymes. Each of the 8 staves of the barrel consists of the beta strand. Together, the 8 barrel beta strands form the interior of the barrel situated in the core of the protein. Now, let's discuss the quaternary structure of proteins. Proteins containing more than one polypeptide chain exhibit a 4th level of structural organization. Each polypeptide chain in such a protein is called a subunit. Quaternary structure refers to the spatial arrangement of subunits and the nature of their interactions. The simplest sort of quaternary structure is a dimer consisting of 2 identical subunits. This organization is present in the DNA binding protein CRO found in a bacterial virus called lambda-phage. More than one type of subunits can be present, often in variable numbers. For example, human hemoglobin, the oxygen-carrying protein in blood, consists of 2 subunits of one type designated as alpha and 2 subunits of another type designated as beta. Thus, the hemoglobin molecule exists as an alpha-2 beta-2 tetramer. Slight changes in the arrangement of subunits within the hemoglobin molecule allow it to carry oxygen from the lungs to tissue and from tissue to lungs with great efficiency. There are several reasons why multi-subunit proteins are so common. In large assemblies of proteins such as collagen fibrils, the advantage of subunit construction over the synthesis of one huge polypeptide chain are analogous to those of using prefabricated components in construction of a building. Defects can be repaired by simply replacing the defective subunit rather than the entire structure. The site of subunit manufacture can be different from the site of assembly into the final product, and the only genetic information necessary to specify the entire structure is that specifying its few different self-assembling subunits. Forces driving quaternary structure. The forces that stabilize quaternary structures have been evaluated for a few proteins. Typical dissociation constant of simple 2 subunit association range from 10⁻⁸ to 10⁻⁻16 m. These values correspond to free energies of association of about 50 to 100 kilojoules per mole at 37 degrees centigrade. Dimerization of subunits is accompanied by both favorable and unfavorable energy changes. The favorable interactions include van der Waals interactions, hydrogen bonds, ionic bonds, and hydrophobic interactions. An additional and important factor contributing to the stability of subunit associations for some proteins is the formation of disulfide bonds between different subunits. All antibodies are alpha-2 beta-2 tetramers composed of 2 heavy chains of 53 to 75 kilodalton and 2 relatively light chains of 23 kilodaltons. In addition to intra-subunit disulfide bonds, 4 per heavy chain, 2 per light chain, 2 inter-subunit disulfide bridges hold the 2 heavy chains together, and a disulfide bridge link each of the 2 light chains to a heavy chain. Now, open quaternary structure and polymerization. All of the quaternary structures we have considered to this point have been closed structures with a limited capacity to associate. However, many proteins in nature associate to form open heterologous structures which can polymerize more or less indefinitely, creating structures that are both aesthetically attractive and functionally important to the cell or tissue in which they exist. One such protein is tubulin, the alpha-beta dimeric protein that polymerizes into long tubular structures, which are the structural bases of cilia, flagella, and the cytoskeletal matrix. The microtubule subunits formed may be viewed as consisting of 13 parallel filaments arising from end-to-end aggregation of the tubulin dimers. There are several important reasons for protein subunits to associate in oligometric structures. These reasons include stability, genetic economy and efficiency, bringing catalytic sites together, and cooperativity. With this, we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you very much. Hope that you might have obtained an insight about the various structures of proteins.